Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Hey,
morning.
Monica.
What a beautiful spring day.
Morning, everybody. This is Councilmember Wesley Hudson, Chairman of Prosperity and Livability Committee, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let me call roll. I believe we have all members present. Mr. Jefferson, are you with us this morning?
Hi, Mr. Chairman, I'm here.
Michael Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, I am here.
Sir, and Ms. Peters, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. We have one item on our agenda this morning, and that's discussion of a Washington Street Cultural Arts Center. And in chambers today, we have Ms. Phyllis Bridges to give us a presentation. So the floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you so much for squeezing me in on your schedule and allowing me to come in to present to you a project that's going to change the face of High Point. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in so I don't hold you guys up. I know you have a lot to do. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background real quick.
Can I ask, or can the remote people see the presentation on your screen?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's beautiful, Phyllis. It is absolutely beautiful. I looked at it yesterday too, but go ahead. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. In 2018, I opened up a small art gallery in my home, and within a year's time, it kind of took off. So I ended up going to Washington Street, and I was there for a couple of different locations. And I decided to go to Washington Street because at that time, that's when there was talk of revitalization. And I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to help make that change. I wanted to help make a difference. I was there up until about 6 years ago. And then, of course, with the economy, we had the collapse in the housing industry. People were focused more on saving their homes instead of buying expensive art. But at that point, at that time, I was already given a vision, my purpose. So that was to expand my art gallery into an African-American art and culture center. Now on the screen, you see Yalik's African-American art and culture movement. I want it to be more than a culture center. I want it to be a movement where it brings people together, all different backgrounds, all different races, to educate, re-educate about the African-American history, particularly here in High Point. That's my focus, High Point's African-American history. So I shut down, but again, I've already been given the vision. So I started laying more of the foundation to get us to this point, and one of the reasons why I'm here today. Okay. I'll point this in. There we go. Yalik's African American Art and Culture Center will be a contemporary center, state of the art, and it will be designed to house multiple exhibition spaces, professional theater, and it will have audio and visual capacity for performances, multi-purpose space that can be utilized for a variety of events that are not common to High Point. So I'm bringing something new to the table. Here you see our mission, vision, and our goals. And I think we're on a pretty good track for accomplishing all three, but it's time to take it to another level. People are always asking me, what do Yalik's mean? Yalik's is my oldest grandson. So I am preparing this for him and his two siblings. This is my legacy to them. And I hope I can win them over. Right now I'm competing with basketball and track and football. So, so hopefully at some point they will be stepping in to take this over. But Yalik's also means the capacity to change the world for the better and the spirit of the community. Now, while I was on Washington Street is the heart of the African-American community. even though it's not in a position where there's a lot going on, it's still the heartbeat of the Black community. The few years that I was on Washington Street, I think I felt I did bring some life back to Washington Street. We had a lot of activities related to the art gallery. We had a lot of people from all walks of life coming back to Washington Street to learn about art. But then also I started introducing the history of High Point's African American community. And I opened my gallery in 2018. In 2012, Yalik's Modern Art, which was the name of the art gallery at the time, made it to Art Sees magazine, which was a statewide magazine as one of the best small art galleries in the state. So when I received that, I knew I was on to something. I knew I was on my right path. So we're looking to bring the spirit back, not just to the Washington Street area, but also a different spirit to the whole city. This state-of-the-art facility will be dramatic. I love color. I'm an artsy person. I love lighting. This would be a showstopper, even when it's closed. So people, when they drive by at night, they're going to want to come back to see what's on the inside. It will be street friendly, and we will connect to some of the biking trails that's nearby in the area and make the sidewalks on the opposite end of Washington Street a little bit more street friendly. Now we're going to introduce performing arts through visual, music, dance, that's related to the African American culture. So we're looking to partner up with a lot of people to bring this to High Point. So through visual art, performing arts, that is one of the components to the Culture Center. We're going to be traveling back in history to the very founding, well, I'll take that back, at least 9 years before the founding of High Point, there was the presence of African American people here in this city. So we're going to learn the history from at least 1850 on up to current present day time, where again, we had 4 city councilmen who made history. We are continuing to make history all the time. It's now time for it to be focused on a little more and educate the public. In this Culture Center, we will have different exhibition spaces that will tell the history, the stories of the African American community. And today I brought a couple of items with me, just so you can get a better visual of what's going to be in this Culture Center. These are some items that have been donated to me over the years. I've interviewed people for years just to get stories about what went on in the African American community since those early 1800s. This little item here was given to me by a lady, and you can't see it good, but this was a domestic worker that worked for her family. And you can see that it's on tin, so this is very old. I do not bring it out often, but she gave this to me and told me a little bit of the story that went behind it, as much as she could tell. But one day she just happened to scan it just to see if the image would come up. And this is the image that came up of this young lady right here. The only thing that we know is that she was a domestic worker for one of the early mayors, and her name was Liz. So in this Culture Center, part of the exhibition space will be these images and this little heirloom that will tell her story. Hopefully I get to do some more research to try to bring more, but this is one example. Also, we had back in the early, mid-1930s, we had a professional men's group, which was made up of Black businessmen, mainly from that Washington Street area. But let me say one thing. We're not going to focus just on the history of Washington Street. It's all of the communities in High Point where we have these pockets of African-American communities. The Men's Professional Club, was formed in the 30s. This is a picture of those gentlemen. And a young lady that I met years ago, I was interviewing her mom on something related to John Coltrane. Her dad was the last treasurer for that organization, and she had their book of minutes. So it dates back to, and this is another item I rarely bring out, but it will be on display in the Culture Center in the case where it can be protected. That image and the story will go with this. The first entry was 1945, but I think they found it in like mid-1930s. So these are just a couple examples of what I have in my possession. But I've interviewed and talked with people, so many people. There's a lot out there that needs to be saved to tell these stories. So that's just an example of what you would see in these exhibition spaces. And then, of course, we will expand on all different areas of what went on in the African-American community, from the earliest known civil rights marches and demonstrations that I could find up until current 2020. We will have space available for any donors. If anyone would like to purchase a exhibition space in honor of someone, that will be available. Over the years, I have partnered up with several museums in the area, all the way down to Raleigh, working on different projects. And I want to expand on those partnerships for different events and educational pieces, but I need a building. There will be art gallery space, art space for up-and-coming artists, established artists, and there will be a children's art gallery. Now the children's art gallery is very special to me because one of my grandsons, who's a little artist, he is going to help be the chair of this space because I want children to run this space. Children from all across the city who love art, but we want to see how they see the world through their art. We already have a little cartoon character that's going to be part of this and it's going to be he's going to be used as a educational piece. So we're excited to get that going. So art will be brought back. Art classes for any and everyone. And then we will also have special collections. I want to bring in African art because they tell stories. This is part of our heritage. This is part of our culture. It will be statues, textile art from different areas of Africa. So I want to educate people about that because there's a lot of false stories behind what certain things mean. And, so I just kind of want to set the record straight, but that's part of our history. So that will be part of our special collections. We will be bringing in large installations that travel throughout the country. The installation, that top image, I saw that a few years ago when I was at Gifford College. And it was a powerful piece. So I would love to bring that piece here that tells stories about our culture and our history. We will have a small lecture hall. That way we can partner up with different organizations, the local colleges and universities to bring professors in to teach classes, workshops on topics related to African-American history, not just when we get to this level, not just on High Point, but nationwide. A small library where people can come in and do research. Now, getting to the good part. Going back to at least 1991 is when African-American art and cultural centers start popping up. And you can see, and these are just on the East Coast. These are the bigger ones. So we have the furthest out will be in Richmond, and that was built in 1991. And the newest museum that's going to open up, and I will be there for the grand opening, will be in 2022 in Charleston. And they are telling the history of Charleston's history related to the slave trade, everything about Charleston. So there's a lot of excited people who are waiting for this to open up, and I'm one of them. Now, when you get in between those, from Richmond down to Charleston, well, we had a couple to pop up since 2017 in Mississippi and in Alabama. So within this, 3-4 year span, we're having 3 more museums to pop up, and it's kind of trending. But again, this is along the East Coast. There are others that are popping up across the country. But these would kind of somewhat be my competition, kind of, sort of. But the closest to High Point will be the Harvey Gantt, which is down in Charlotte. But he focused more on art, and his cultural piece doesn't really focus on the history of the city, the Black history. That's the difference between us two. Okay, come on in a little closer. So between Richmond, Charleston, Harvey Gantt is somewhat my competition, but I feel what we will be offering to not just the community, but to visitors, because this will be a tourist attraction for the city and the area. There's a lot of difference, and we will stand out even from the Harvey Gantt. So I'm very confident about all of this. So this is one of the main reasons why I'm here is a site. And one thing I do want to say, that I have tremendous faith in this project. I believe in this project. I've been putting my heart, soul, time, effort, money in this project since 2010. And I know it can be very valuable to High Point. Again, not just for the communities, bringing the communities together, but also a tourist attraction. The site that we're looking at, that we would love to build this culture center on, is on the opposite end of Washington Street, closer to Washington Terrace Park. And as you can see, that yellow dot that's kind of off by itself, that's an old filtration site. So this land has pretty much been sitting vacant, overgrown for decades. And this will be a perfect site for a culture center. It's right outside the historical district. It will be the catalyst for that revitalization that's needed for that section of town. As you can see, we've put dots on the lots that's owned by the city of High Point, and then we have 4 that's owned by the housing authority. Okay. I am working with the Sandmick Corporation in designing this culture center, and they brought on one of their architect firms, which is CJMW out of Winston-Salem. Awesome team of architects and designers. So I'm really, really excited. And you can see that the building doesn't cover that land is roughly 8 acres. The building doesn't cover all of it, but we would like to have all of it because we have ideas for future use for that section where that huge concrete hole is. So this building was designed around the layout of that land, because in some sections, there's like a 20-foot drop off. So I also have this that I can share with you guys. And it shows how the Sandmick Corporation has gone in, and they can see all the dips and the valleys of that land. So that's why the building is positioned the way it is, and plenty of parking, because it will be an awesome site for field trips. We want to have a partnership with the school systems, not just Gifford County. I don't know if, well, they're not doing it now, but before, I know some of the kids may take a field trip on the Amtrak to Raleigh. I want to make High Point that spot. So we have plenty of spaces for buses. This is the layout of the facility. It's roughly 53,000 square feet, two to three different layers. It just depends on the land. The front section, do this by any chance have a pointer? Okay. The front, well, we'll look at the purple section. That's the entrance to the culture center. That's the lobby area. There will be a small gift shop. There will be a small coffee cafe right there as you're coming in. Then the orange space represents the office space, conference room for staff. The lighter purple area is the history exhibits. That's the area that will tell the history of High Point's African-American community through the family heirlooms that are being donated to us, through the photos. And I have hours of video footage where I've interviewed people over the last several years, just telling their stories. So we have a lot to bring to the table for that section. If you cross over to the other side, the like robin's egg blue color, that is the gallery space. That's where the art galleries for the children's gallery, the up and coming artists, established artists will be on that section. And then we will have a small theater where we can do performing arts. I think we're looking to seat roughly 400 on the lower level, but above it on that top level will be designed where we can have like galas for sit down type of events, dinners, stuff like that. Down the middle in the white section is the courtyard. It will have a small amphitheater so we can have outdoor performances. Little jazz trios on a Sunday afternoon would be quite nice. There will be a water feature. At the very end of that walkway will be a memorial garden, and I will be reaching out to some artists to create something in honor of African Americans who have contributed to the city of High Point. And there will also be a skywalk, which is that yellow line connecting one side of the culture center to the other. And these are some renderings created by CJMW Architect, so you can get a better visual of what the exterior looks like. The image that's closer to the bottom where it looks like water, that is the area of the coffee cafe. When you're looking into the courtyard, there will be a water feature right there. And then you can see the hallway down the front part of the gallery, which will be the art space. Those yellow lines on the exterior of the building is what we call fins. And the architects want to kind of play off the title. So those fins will be a different color. And as you move by the building, as you drive by it, walk by it, there will be movement, like the building is moving a little bit. So I'm excited to see that. So that's a little bit of, we haven't started designing the inside, but we're bringing all our ideas to the table right now. But this is pretty much what the exterior would look like. And that is the end of this presentation. I brought several copies, and you can pass them on to the other members of, let me give you one, of the executive summary. Okay. So now we're going to go a little bit more into this project. And forgive me if I hold my book out, I forgot my glasses. But in the front page, you can see who we're working with, the Sandmick Corporation and their team of architects, and also my current board members. And at some point, once this project start moving forward, we will be looking to bring other people in, because this is going to be a large project, but I'm ready for it. And I'm going to need the best of the best to help get it off the ground and make it move. And again, our mission statement, our goals, our values. And on page 8, we are the catalyst for revitalization. And I truly believe that. This is what will make that Washington Street area move in a direction that it needs to be moved. I know there's been a couple attempts in the past, but I've been studying this for years. This is no overnight, I can do it. And then as we go over to page 10, you see a map of the property. Again, it's roughly 8 acres. And the majority of the property owners, the city of High Point. The other property owners is a housing authority. And you can see that we have a list of opportunities for this area. It connects with the community. It's right there on the bus route. It's a block from the historical Washington Terrace Park, 2 blocks from the home of John Coltrane, and 3 blocks from the historical Washington Street District. And the reason I threw this out, again, this project, this is the perfect location to build this culture center. Yaleaks has put itself in a position where we're already have things in place. Things are already moving on Washington Street. One of the things that we're working on, and it will be rolling out soon, and that will tie in this culture center is an African-American heritage trail. We just received a grant from Drive High Point to have additional historical markers installed, and to start creating murals on some of the buildings on Washington Street that's more related to our history, our culture, and that tells our story. So this heritage trail is going to start from Washington Terrace Park, come on up Washington Street past that culture center. That's going to be sitting on that lot nice and pretty. Go on up Washington Street to Oakwood Cemetery. Well, let me back up. Culture Center, Coltrane House. And hopefully we will have tours and have other types of events or whatever going on at the Coltrane House. So that's another tourist attraction along the stretch. Then we go on over to Oakwood Cemetery, where I've done a lot of research on that cemetery, and I've gotten a lot of support from the city as far as getting historical markers. We did a GPA study last year to see how many people are buried in the African-American section that dates back to 1859. Up until last year, I was going out every summer to do a walking history tour, and that was very successful. So that will be part of the Heritage Trail, which was bring us on downtown to the train station, where we have a historical marker, where it's a memorial marker in honor of 3 African Americans that was killed when the train tracks was lowered, coming over to the Civil Rights Monument, John Coltrane Monument, go back down Leonard Street, where we will have other markers in key places, and in at Green Hill Cemetery, which is another area I haven't had a chance to tap into, but I've already partnered with a couple of organizations who's going to help start working on the history of that, and the trail will take you back over to Washington Terrace Park. So we already have that in movement. So hopefully, once we order the markers and later on towards the end of the year, we will officially launch this African American Heritage Trail. And then at some point, we want to connect with the South Side's Heritage Trail with Dorothy Dorr and her team of people. So we already have a lot moving, and a couple other events, but I'm going to take a lock on that. The location, again, is key, and it can tie in with the Jamestown bypass at 5 Point. And we're like 1.4 miles from that entrance. And I can see how, and right now it's being called part of the new front door to High Point. We want to greet those visitors when they come through that door. Perfect location, perfect site. And this site also is in the opportunity zone. Right now, we have 2 organizations that offer higher levels of education in High Point, which is GTCC and High Point University. We want to be number 3. You come on over to page 13, you can see our benefits, the impact of this project, how a culture center can bring the community together and also expand and take it out to the triad and state area for as educating and bringing in cultural type events, and also how the culture center can connect with the city of High Point and the African American community. I think this will be a perfect way to tie in a lot of things that we're moving forward with here in the city. On page 14, you see some of our potential partners. Again, we're looking to work with local colleges and universities to bring in educators, entertainment, arts that will help tell High Point story and also the story from different parts of the country. And again, we're looking to have a partnership with the school system. You know, this will be a perfect place for field trips for younger kids and older kids. And then as you get over to page 16, we have included a 5-year operational table to see out, so you can get a better visual of our expenses, the profits that we're expecting, and you can just look through that on your own. And then on page 24, the economic impact, this will be a draw for High Point because we will be looking to bring in events that are not common for this area, but they're common in bigger cities. Say, for instance, a fine Black art show. When I got into the art business, that was when the art industry was really booming, especially for African American artists. There were art shows that would take place 2-3 day weekends, anywhere between New York on down to Atlanta. Well, over the years, and then with the economy, we've lost all of these major art shows, but no art show has taken place in North Carolina. I want to be that spot to bring in those artists, and to also, it helps with tourism, because then you will have people coming in from different parts of the country and also the city, the state, to see this art. Harvey Gantt Center down in Charlotte doesn't even do this, but I know it's needed because I still connect with all the artists. They're looking for somewhere to go to host, show, and sell their art. So it will also bring in tourism. It will help with the hotels here in the area. And again, with that revitalization, we will have several job positions open. I'm not sure how many at this moment. And there will also be partnerships for internships, volunteers. We will offer an admission fee to get into the Culture Center, and the pricing is comparable to some of the other places here in the area that charge for people to come in. Memberships. So we have a lot of different ways of creating revenue for this Culture Center. Every area of this Culture Center you will be able to rent it out. So if you want to have you published a book and you want a book signing, you can have one there. If you want to have I had a lady reach out to me about 2 months ago. She's with the AKAs, and they're wanting to open up a headquarters here in High Point, and they're looking for a spot. Like, this is perfect. And then just imagine what they bring to the table as far as their different functions and their events. So it's a lot. The NAACP I know they are pushing to change things in that organization. So, hey, they're going to be looking for a space to have a gala. So here we are. So we will be reaching a different audience and bringing in different events that will be new to High Point and somewhat new to this area, especially the arts. The last couple of pages is letter of support. House Representative Cecil Brockman is aware of this project. He's in full support of it. He's going to be working at the state level to see what he can do for us getting fundings for this project. We also have the support of County Commissioner Carvina Foster. She's going to be working on her end to get support as well. And there's others who were not included in this book, but we are ready to rock and roll with this project. Again, it's that catalyst that's needed for that eastern part of the city. So today, myself and Angela Robson, on behalf of the ULEAG's African American Art and Culture Movement, is asking that the city of High Point donate the land that's on the far end of Washington Street for this project. That's all I have at the moment. So I'm open for questions.
Well, I will open the floor to the council members. Any questions or comments you all have?
Yes,
Hey,
Councilman.
Chairman Hudson. You go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Jefferson. Chairman Hudson, thank you. Ms. Phyllis, I really appreciate this this visionary project that you have going on, the arts and the history of African Americans in the city deserve to have their story told. I thank you for coming in with this comprehensive presentation. I think a lot of questions that maybe people would have had about this, I think you answered some of those. And can you give us a little update on the timeline? If we were to be able to approve the land, approve the land for this event, what would be the timeline for breaking ground and then on to the future? When would you look at opening if that land was approved in the next month or two?
The outcome of this meeting is going to determine that. I do have 2 organizations that are interested in this project, and one is ready to commit monetarily, but they want my organization to have ownership of the property. Once that takes place, then they're ready to donate. And these 2 key organizations, I can say, is in that top 5 of donors in the city. So the financial support is on standby. So we are, I have numbers from the Samet Corporation of what it will cost just to build it. So they're now in that process of doing a breakdown as the different stages to start moving things, far as permits and all that stuff. So we're ready. We are ready.
Thank you.
Hey, Chairman Hudson, this is Councilman Jefferson.
Go ahead.
Phyllis, thank you for coming in and sharing this. I know that we've had a few conversations in which you've been able to shine a light on this, and for the past few years have been able to see the incredible work that you do in our community with regards to capturing the history and capturing what it is, the culture of many arts contributions to High Point. I know that I'm not very familiar with what our precedent and process has been for land conveyance, and I'm hoping that perhaps we can get some help from staff here in the way of advisement on typically when we're conveying land. I know that the reason is that it's got to have, a good sort of public use. But I know that at some point, maybe there's some things that we need to see prior to that land conveyance, whether it's, certain amount of money raised or other pledges of support. I know, Ms. Phyllis, you brought in and mentioned a number of individuals and organizations that are supporting the effort. But I don't think I heard you mention if you have any actual capital raised just yet for the project. So maybe we start with staff. I know that was a very long about way of asking staff to weigh in. But maybe staff, if you all can weigh in and thinking do some past times in which we've done this, what's been typically what we've seen. Do folks have their money raised entirely before we convey it? Do they usually have about half their money raised? And then I think there's also another question about what sort of process of feasibility have we gone through with this for that sort of thing?
As far as the capital campaign, again, that's something that's on hold because I realized this is new for all of us. And we kind of have to see which way we're going. And I don't want to plan too far ahead and waste time and energy, and then we have to backtrack. So we're kind of just feeling our way through here, but we do have a capital campaign plan. We just have not launched it yet. Far as any type of feasibility study, I've reached out to people in this field far as building culture centers. And when I mentioned a feasibility study, they're like, why? Because right now, the only thing we're asking for is the land. That's it. The lands would be a huge jumpstart for this project. So that's all we're asking for. So at this point, they're not quite understanding why a feasibility study now when we just want land. So that's kind of where we are with that.
Yeah, and if I can follow up on my question prior to hearing from staff, and because I appreciate you saying that, when I think to answer someone's inquiry about why a feasibility study would be needed at this point, when all you ask for is land, I think that what council and the city has to be mindful of is that we actually get a number of requests throughout any given calendar year in which folks are curious about having land conveyed to them for a purpose that is a pretty righteous and in many ways valid purpose. And so I think that what we're always mindful of, though, is that if you convey a land over, and let's just say worst case scenario, there is no money raised, there's nothing that happens, but that land just sort of sits with your organization for all these years. Well, then the questions come up down the road of, well, why was it conveyed before there was any assurance that there was that this would work, any assurance that they had more support to go with it. And it's just one of those things where I think as a city, we have to do our due diligence, because technically the land is owned by the city of High Point government, but the city of High Point government is really just a function of the people. And so we would have to answer the questions to our city at large, to the 120,000 plus residents, all the businesses who contribute to this tax base, who own the properties that the city owns, in which they say properties are being given out. And we're wondering if, as a council, as a governing body, are you doing your due diligence? And so feasibility to me seems like a pretty appropriate and valid step to figure out if land should be conveyed. I hear your point about, it's just land being given, but I also hear your point about it being a huge step. And there's a lot of people who would love to have the city give them land where we entertain those conversations. And I might be a little off here, but I think there's been a past in which maybe we've seen property change hands to folks, and then something stalls with the project. Maybe it's not the owner's fault, but something stalls, and now that property is no longer in control of the city, it's in control of someone else, and there's just some challenges that come with that. And so I think it is important that a due diligence be done. But with that said, if our manager's there, I'm attending virtually, so I'm not able to see. Randy, is it possible to maybe talk through, in your experience, where we've conveyed land, what have been some of those prerequisites that typically we see, with these sort of efforts? Is it, do we ask for that feasibility study first typically? Do we ask to see a certain amount of financial support? Do we, what are we typically looking at here?
Can I throw in something right quick? There is money that's waiting on us. Like I just said, one of the organizations, which is a major contributor to other projects here in the city, is waiting on us. So they want to do a contribution to get the ball rolling. But right now, we just need the land. So there's money waiting. There's money on the table.
Chairman Hudson, may I please chime in?
Yes, that's fine. Go ahead, Ms. Peters.
Okay, so I totally understand, Councilman Jefferson, what you're asking, and if Randy McCaslin is in the room, I guess one of the ways to look at this is maybe, I know that with economic development, we do a lot of stuff on contingency, so I don't know if legally there's some way to say, so anyway, I would be interested to hear what your thoughts are that Councilman Jefferson asked, like what are some other ways the city has done something like this in the past?
Typically what we do is MOUs with people with benchmarks, and we'll set benchmarks to.
And excuse me, Councilmember Hudson, if I could speak in, this is Joanne Carlisle, your city attorney. I don't see that this is an economic development matter. It really does seem to boil down at this point anyway, at first blush, as a consideration of donation of property for a public purpose.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. McCaslin, if you can, or benchmarking a little bit maybe.
Well, I was going to see if Joanne was on the call. I think there's several criteria that I think would need to be met. One is the public purpose, which I think it probably meets that without any concern. I think then whether the benchmarks, as you pointed out, Wesley, I think are important, but that's something that council would have to establish. Just what those benchmarks are and at what point certain actions take place. Joanne may want to speak. There may have to be some kind of reversionary clause attached to the property if indeed the project does not come to fruition. I think there's a number of issues to be worked out. I think, and we'll probably end up having to do a good bit of research, both legal and out of our office, in order to properly advise the city council on just what steps need to be taken. I think at this point, it's just a matter of moving, of the council deciding, is this something you want to consider? And if it is, then allowing your legal department and your administration to put some information together to see just what steps need to be followed. Right now, I'm drawing a blank as to other projects that where the city may have donated land for any purpose, but I'm not saying they're not there. I'm just right now can't put my finger on any of them.
And Randy, this is Joanne again. You're absolutely right. I think this fits the definition clearly of a public purpose. So the city's legal right to make the donation of the property is there. That authority exists. What we would be looking at, if the council wants to consider some terms, it would not be an incentive type agreement with benchmarks that we generally see associated with an economic development agreement, but there could be some benchmarks that the city council might want to determine as to, when certain accomplishments would be made. We will have to have a reversionary clause in the deed of the, that actually transferred the donation of the property. But we could also have like an MOU or a separate agreement that would tie in the, whatever the council wanted to see accomplished and those deadlines as well.
it sounds like, and Chairman Hudson, this is Councilman Jefferson. It sounds like there is a way for us to do some more considering of this. And I hear what Randy said, which is to decide as a committee if this is something that we're interested in sort of asking us questions about and doing some further research on. So that then legal and administration can go do sort of the research and figuring out and go through the due process of learning what's what. I think that given all of the effort that Phyllis and her team have put in, not only to this presentation, but all the study and things they've done to look at the land, to also look at the effort comparing other centers and things of that nature, it seems that they've invested quite a bit of time and energy. And from her former sort of centers, she's obviously contributed, I think, lots of resources to pulling that off and seeing what kind of success we've had here in the community with it. I think it's worth us going down that road to see, if there's a path forward, what does that look like? What are the other examples of land conveyance where maybe we have, and forgive me for lack of better terms here, fallbacks or benchmarks, things of that nature. I certainly think it's worthwhile. So I would, Mr. Chairman, and Joanne, Madam Attorney, I may need your help to make sure I get my motion right here. But I would move that we, I guess, authorize appropriate staff between legal and city management to go and, I guess, do some more research on what are some potential ways for us to do this and some other examples in which we've seen support for these kinds of projects done, not just in our city's history, also in other local municipalities of similar size and similar nature, maybe throughout the country. And I know that's a very long motion, so Madam Clerk, I apologize.
There is a motion.
Jefferson, I believe that was a lengthy, but absolutely on point motion to be made. It sounds like something, Randy, I appreciate your comment. It sounds like something that would be good to possibly staff take a look at and then bring back around to the council's members, perhaps at the manager's meeting or something, manager's briefing, I mean.
Yes, we could certainly do that in the very near.
That's exactly what I was going to recommend. So is that okay with your motion, Councilmember Jefferson?
Absolutely. All of the above and throw in there figuring out feasibility. I just want to make sure all the right words are in there. So.
Very good. There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? If not, I will take the roll and the vote on the motion. Councilmember Holmes, how do you vote?
Aye, Mr. Chairman.
Councilmember Jefferson?
Aye, Chairman.
Councilmember Peters?
Aye.
Thank you. And the chairman votes aye, so that motion passes unanimously. So we'll give that back to staff for a future presentation. Thank you.
Thank you
wonderful
so much.
Presentation. This is good stuff. Glad to see this coming across the table. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Any further comments or questions for Ms. Bridges while she's with us? If not, thank you very much for being here. Thank you, other council members. If there is no objection, we'll adjourn the meeting. Summarily, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.